Hello and welcome to the big fight, and it was one of those weeks which saw considerable churn in the world of cricket. Fairly sharp judgment against Chennai Super Kings and Rajasthan Royals, of course, and against two individuals. What does all of this mean for the future of the game? Is this the first major step in cleaning up cricket, as many say it is? What more needs to be done, and where are we going to go from here? That's essentially what we're going to be discussing right here on the big fight, and we have a great panel joining us to take us through all of that. Atul Vasan, former cricketers, great to have you with us. Kishore Bhimani, who we've been hearing describing the sport from a time when it was a lot more genteel than it is right now. It's great to have you with us as well. Gopal Jain, senior advocate at the Supreme Court, cricket enthusiast. And Gopal, I did threaten to say that one of your major contributions to the world of cricket was the fact that I've been beating you in cricket since class 2, was it, or class 3?
Dream on.
Well, okay, we'll have a match someday in public. Sharinder Singh, who's Joint Managing Director of Percept, who's in his work hard, play hard avatar. So thanks a lot, Sharinder, for joining us. We have Bimal Soni, Deputy President of the Rajasthan Cricket Association, joining us from Jaipur. Rajasthan, of course, one of the key focus areas in all that's been happening. And joining us from Bangalore is Saad Bin Jung, a cricketer who's got very strong views on everything that's been happening. But before I come to all of you, the man whose investigation really started all of this, which is Justice Mudgal, former Chief Justice of the Punjab and Haryana High Court, and the man whose recommendations and reports really led to the dramatic events of this week. So I got a chance to speak to him just a short while ago. Justice Mudgal joining us on the big fight, and I began by asking him whether he thought this was a fair verdict.
I think it's one of the most balanced verdicts in the sports litigation which I have seen. It balances the interest of the players. I'll tell you why. Because there's a common perception that the players are left at large. They aren't. They can, I'm sure, go to other franchisees and play for next 2 years. As far as the punishment is concerned, I think it is absolutely right. It sends a strong message. It does not terminate the franchise. It balances the interest and gives a 2 years hiatus to the two franchisees.
Well, Justice Mudgal, it was, of course, your investigation into all of this which really led to all of this, and it was a very good investigation. But I just wanted to check your own perception of whether this was an individual problem, a few black sheep, or were there lots of organizational issues, which therefore also makes it justifiable to go after the institutions themselves, the franchises themselves?
There were certainly organization problems in the sense that the owners were not careful to see that none of their partners or co-owners or representative of the owners, as in case of Mr. Mahpan, were indulged in something wrong. So in that sense, there are organization problems. But we did not go, frankly, into the organizations of the two franchisees. That's not our mandate.
I think one of the questions that many people have asked after this week is whether are a lot of people being punished for the actions of a few or a couple of people. So yes, obviously there were certain people with whom there may have been wrongdoing. But in a sense, if you look at what's happening, the franchises are being punished, players potentially are being punished. There could be young players who suddenly are finding their future in doubt, advertisers, broadcasters. So are a lot of people being punished for the sins of a couple of people?
No, I think I'd like to suggest two things here. One, when Kochi Tuskers and other teams were terminated, same thing happened to their players also. At that time, there was no hue and cry. And it is because Chennai Super Kings why things are being hyped up so much. That's the first part. Second part is, in Italian league, Juventus, who were the runners-up in the Champions League this year, European Champions League, they had some malpractice. They were relegated to the second division. They offered free transfer to all their players so they could play in the first division, that is Serie A. But those who chose to stay with them, such as Buffon, the international goalkeeper of Italy also, they continued paying him. Here the punishment is not of relegation because there is no relegable second league. So it's a punishment of expulsion, in the sense suspension for 2 years. And I think I don't see how that creates a problem, because some as Justice Lodha said, for the larger good of cleansing of cricket, there has to be some small suffering. And I do feel that the players deserve to be let free for 2 years, because I don't think they should suffer.
The broader question, Justice Mudgal, that I wanted to ask you, which many people have been debating all week long, is whether you feel the IPL itself can survive this. Now, for starters, it's down to 6 teams in the next couple of years. What's going to happen is uncertain. Also, the damage to the brand and issues like that. So, in your view, is the IPL going to survive and continue to thrive?
No, IPL can survive with 6 teams also, but financially viability may become a problem, because all the advertisers have promised 60 matches, you know, sponsors, advertisers. So all the revenue is based on that. But look, I don't think IPL per se is a bad thing. It is a good format in the sense its malpractices must be curbed, because it gives exposure to the young players to play with the best in the world and acquire confidence. And when they come into the international field, they are much more confident, they are not nervous, they are not overawed, because they have already played against them in their league matches. One of the best things to do is to have iconic players speak to youngsters entering the international arena or the IPL, that if you stray from the path, consequences are disastrous, your career can be ruined for a small sum of money.
I wanted to ask you, have you seen or found any evidence of match fixing at the IPL?
We were suspicious of one match, but we were not able to find evidence to sustain the finding. You know, there was one match where Gurunath Mahippan had predicted that Chennai Super King will score between 135 and 140, and they ended up getting 141. But we could not find supporting evidence. But in our report, we have given circumstances which give suspicion, and circumstances which may show that it is normal. There was nothing wrong with it. Suspicious circumstances were that Chennai Super Kings had already qualified, and winning and losing did not matter to them. They hit not a single 6 in the innings. And on the other side, one would have thought that teams naturally relax when they qualify, you know, and they may not like to risk injuries or more performance. There were 4 or 5, but they are all in the report. I don't recollect them just now, all the circumstances.
So you're saying you didn't actually find any concrete evidence of match fixing, nothing that you could actually pin down. But what's your personal opinion? Do you think match fixing was taking place at the IPL?
It may have happened, but you know, I wouldn't like to give you a definitive answer without that. But it's not as frequent as an occurrence as it is thought that almost every match or every alternate match is fixed. That is not correct. Most of the matches are absolutely clean. Players play with verve, enthusiasm and full spirit. So I don't think we can taint the tournament as such. That won't be proper.
Okay. Those are important conclusions. May have happened, that's match fixing, but not as prevalent as many people actually believe. So, Justice Mudgal, before we allow you to go, one last question, which I will be then throwing to our entire panel here on The Big Fight as well. When it comes to the other sin that I was referring to, which is betting, one of the possible thoughts that some people have is, why leave it as a sin? Why not simply legalize betting? And if you are to legalize betting, brings it above ground in a sense, and perhaps also helps everyone get a greater control in it. So, after your observation of what's been happening in the world of cricket, do you think that legalizing betting would help to solve the problem?
In fact, in our recommendations, one of the recommendations is that betting should be legalized. And I'll give you the reason for this. A, it gets the government a lot of revenue. B, the money does not get fueled into underworld activities. C, it is all white, money is white, it is taxed, you know, and you know, in FIFA, for example, has a computer program by which the suspicious betting patterns can be traced. FIFA can step in and stop the match or warn the players or even cancel the result. So I'm sure with BCCI, with the resources, can surely generate such a program. And there could be a gaming commission of people of impeccable integrity who control betting activities. Of course, betting can lead to evils also, which is there in any activity such as smoking, alcohol. So, I mean, all over the world, betting is legal. People even today are doing betting by internet on Ladbrokes and Betfair.com and all. Let me tell you, it will not eliminate malpractices, but they'll reduce it to a large extent, because even in the countries where betting is legal, some malpractices do happen, but most of them get traced because of the betting patterns.
All right, Justice Mudgal, thank you so much for joining us on The Big Fight.
Thank you, Vikram.
All right, so that was Justice Mudgal on The Big Fight just a short while back. But now let me throw this open to the entire panel, because in a sense, all that he said as his investigation set the stage for what the Lodha committee has done. What he said right now sets the stage for the rest of this discussion. So why don't I start by you, Atul, on the point of whether the IPL itself is going to survive after this, with the verdict that we've had. And then I want to come to some of the broader questions around match fixing and betting.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to actually differentiate between IPL and cricket, because some of the times people actually blur the lines. You know, will cricket survive? Cricket will survive. IPL as a product will survive in some format or the other, unless we actually totally demolish it by keeping what's been going on for so many years. I think it is a tournament which was started out of an idea by Narendra Modi, and then as the tournament moved forward, they were making rules as they were going along, because there was no such template, and they were sweeping powers with the people there. So a lot of corruption came in. Rights were given away unilaterally when people were hired, fired, and a lot of wheeling deals were done because he was the Pied Piper at that time. And
like
board was looking at the green bucks he was making. So he was allowed to do whatever he wanted to do to whosoever. And he could take out a team, he could sack anybody, he could rig the bidding. And at that point, the board could only see because they were looking at the money. And suddenly it came out of their hands. And now other people came in, the big wigs of board came in, and the system
about
structure.
To start tweeting about you if you're not careful.
Well,
watch what you're saying.
These are the facts. But the point is that product will survive, because I think it's time where there's always a continuous independent commission by people like Mr. Mudgal, is impeccable, reputation, and they can watch over the going out of the board. It's not going to be much if they just give that this is supposed to be done, and then move away again.
Start of the entire cleaning up.
And 3 years down the line, we'll be back at where we started.
Okay.
So it should be continuous commission monitoring the workings of the board, and I think that will be the way forward.
Bimal Soni, you've been a manager of the Indian cricket team. You're now deputy president of the Rajasthan Cricket Association. What long-term change do you think this is going to make to Indian cricket, if any?
I think it has a big meaning now. A lot of administrative reforms are required, and I think Lodha Commission, after Mudgal report, would also put in a lot of things in place. There was a conflict of interest. There was leniency against betting and match fixing, and we were able to reach to the conclusions. It was all covered. I think first time, had we taken action 2 years back, we would have had no Mudgal committee, we would have had no Lodha report, but all these things have come up because of the slackness on the part of administrators in BCCI and their actions. And I am sure there were so many groups and so many people trying to cover up each other. So all this is a result of that. And ultimately, loss is to the BCCI goodwill, BCCI reputation, and the game of cricket. And now, with the reforms and changes which are now contemplated, I think this historic decision will help us bring back glory to BCCI and cricket in India. And I think we were considered the best run board in sports.
Okay, best run board in sports. Would you agree with that, Kish?
No, wait a minute. I think
actually, that says a lot about the other boards.
It's one of the worst run cricket organizations in the world.
If you look at the quantum of sentence, if that's the testimonial to say it's a well-run board, you're given life sentence in some case, you suspended 2 franchisees.
It used to be,
if that's considered as an accomplishment and a feather on the cap, I mean, that's a different way of looking at it.
It has never been a well-run board. It is not a well-run board, and it's going to get worse from here.
Bimal?
It's a tyrannical organization.
Nothing can be worse than what happened in the last 2 years.
Overview, and they have done what they liked. And when things got worse, when they got caught, then people are now chucking stones at them. 30 years ago.
Can you add it all up? Tyrannical organization with its own worldview. What are the things that you said?
Tyrannical, because there is no... RTI is not allowed on the board, opposition is not allowed within it. Their own laws are such that, for example, when Srinivasan was under a cloud, the same 6 people who were supposed to nominate the candidate for president had no choices. They had to go and they had to nominate. And when they were told that, you know, they said this is the constitution of the board.
Okay.
Now, if you think, and one last point is that the idea of the autocrat, the absolute power megalomaniac, is in the cricket control board president. Always, not just one time.
Okay.
I just have a point which is very relevant. I think.
No, which of these two views of the BCCI do you agree with first of all?
None of them actually, because I think I'm questioning the DNA of BCCI. And what you said in the opening remark, that when this happened to IPL now, the stakeholders suffer, the broadcasters suffer, you know, the cricketers suffer, the franchise suffer. You forgot to say one very crucial aspect: the fans. It is the fans and the population of India that love cricket make this sport and IPL popular, and BCCI is a representation and the voice of those billion people who believe that cricket is a
I'm
religion.
going to come to fans. We have lots of fans, including kids, and I'm
So
going to ask them
my
what they think of
question is, this arrogance in BCCI comes from the fact that they believe that they're an organization of their own. They're not. This population can overthrow kings and governments. This population, if it unites on this cause, this is ridiculous. They have stripped the reputation of Indian national sport called cricket in the front of the eyes of the whole world. This is ridiculous. And no BCCI official is accountable? 2 little punters have been put into the docks? Are you serious? In the chain of command. No, hang on.
I mean,
well, they've been positioned as gamblers.
yeah, they've been positioned as little punters. They're not necessarily little punters.
They just, whatever, I don't know, you know, the degree is, you know, questionable, like Mr. Mudgal said, that I think some matches are fixed, some are not. I mean, that's an interesting remark, but I mean, it's either fixed or not, period. And even one is fixed.
I'm
saying if a glass of water,
some matches are potentially fixed.
My question is,
there's no evidence of
we
it.
are a country with the youngest population. We don't take anymore. Long story short, if a glass of water is put in front of you, Vikram, and there's a speck of dust in it, will you drink it? You won't.
Speck of dust, of course I will.
Well, with that argument, I
It's
think
corrupt.
you scrap FIFA also.
No,
I mean, you can't just
I am
blame
not saying
the whole
this.
establishment with 1 or 2 games. You know,
Atul, the
no,
game.
stop football now.
Atul, the game is going to survive.
FIFA is
Atul, your argument doesn't stand a chance
betting
because
is found in,
cricket will survive.
in World Football
IPL
Club.
will survive. It will survive. But I don't think you can voice the sentiments to say that BCCI is an organization that feels and represents the voice of the cricket lovers of the nation.
Well, you're right, because just banning these 2 players is like putting Band-Aid on cancer, you know.
Exactly.
You can't just hope
I agree,
to
Atul.
be cured just because 2 people. It looks symbolic, it looks good.
I agree.
You know, you are putting, sending a terror thing out that, okay, we're going to ban. You are implementing the board's own rules verbatim. That's what happens, right?
And Vikram, one critical question. Why is this board's constitution not on the internet? Why are the accounts not on the internet?
But the decisions aren't on the internet. You can't RTI. You can't figure it out.
No,
It actually is.
why
I
not?
think
It's
we
an
have to look
act.
forward to this session of monsoon where sporting fraud bill, you know, everybody is.
I mean, I'll give you one example. I'll give you one example. I've
Yeah.
been trying for years to try and find out why is it that India, which should have a great interest in building up cricket in the Asian Games and the Olympic Games, why doesn't India send a cricket team to the Asian Games? I haven't been able to get an answer
I'll
from
tell you why.
anybody, and no one
I'll
seems
tell
to
you
know.
why. Because the Indian cricket team is not the national cricket team. It's a private property of the board. When Sachin put the flag, you forgot the controversy. There was a controversy on Sachin putting the national flag on his helmet. Come on. We've got to face reality and flip this upside down.
Bimal Soni, I mean, you were saying at the board that BCCI is relatively well run, and I know we're not necessarily expecting you to defend everything that the BCCI has done, but you heard some of the criticism and the concern that there is over the BCCI.
What I'm trying to say is that board has a very good history of being well-run organization, and it needs reforms now.
Okay, will things be better? Saad Bing Jung, your sense, are things going to be better?
Listen, we are not addressing the 2 very fundamental issues which have been addressed by the Justice Lodha panel. Now the thing is that Justice Lodha has really gone out of his way to state that the spirit of the game must be upheld, which fundamentally means spirit of the game was designed and defined for the amateur. It was not about the money. It will never be about the money if you look at the spirit of the game. Now it's become the professional. So you cannot have the same spirit and apply it to the professional. It doesn't work. So and I actually disagree with Justice Mudgal over here, stating that you know, we should be looking at the players and the franchisees and the losses. No, nothing matters in front of cricket. Finally, it's about the game. And listen, institutional reform is the other thing they're bringing in. What does that mean? That means that the executive is going to become responsible. That means the executive, if he has not taken decisions, omissions or commissions, will now be held responsible, and we might even take action against him both civilly and criminally. Now look what the BCCI has done over a period of 70 years or 80 years, however long they've been there. The fact is that they've got the laws in place. But look at the investigation agencies. They're completely toothless. The ASCU, I mean the anti-corruption units of both the ICC and the BCCI have no teeth. They can do nothing. Now look at what's happened in Hyderabad. You've got 199 cases in Hyderabad, which have been filed by the police. None of these, not the ASU from the BCCI, not the anti-corruption unit from the ICC, have gone and picked them out and taken further action.
Okay, so
which fundamentally means that this toothless body will have to be changed and redefined, and I think that's where institutional reform is coming.
Toothless body when it comes to investigation, but let's not underestimate the power of the BCCI at the end of the day. That controls cricket not just in India, but around the world. The sort of a grip that the BCCI has on the ICC is also there, and that's for commercial reasons, as you know. So at the end of the day, whatever we may say, while India and Indian cricket and the BCCI in particular continue to control the purse strings as they do right now, at the end of the day, is the dominance going to remain and no major change going to happen?
No, nothing is going to happen there, because I think we've got the numbers, to be honest, and the numbers really determine the course. But I think the custodians need to get a bit more sporty. I think the whole environment is way too political. And to be honest, like Sabjin saying, this whole constitution was built at a time where I think compromises were made. And same Atul said about IPL. As they went along, they made a few rules. Times have changed. This generation doesn't take this kind of attitude. Okay, so and I think that change needs to come. And I personally believe that what has the Lodha Commission said out there, what has happened? The changes may not happen due to these reports, to be honest. The change has to come from within BCCI. Now I want to ask a question. In 5 years, nobody spoke about IPL. 25,000 controversies took place. No voice. Till today, in this controversy, no voice from BCCI. Mahendra Singh Dhoni hasn't spoken in 4 years. Are you serious? He's the captain of all formats. Mahendra Singh Dhoni has still not clarified why did he take the job in India Cements. Was he 9 to 5 a bit free? He needed a job. B, he wanted the salary. I mean, at some point, Dhoni explained. And this is the leader of our sport. I mean, so there are too many unanswered questions and no voices. Sundaraman comes on TV yesterday to say a few words about IPL. He's the CEO. He was the only guy who spoke.
And under investigation himself.
Under investigation. So this is a bit of a sham. And where's Dalmia? Come on, do a press conference, play on the front foot.
Yeah,
why
I mean, but hang on, that's one of the issues right now, don't we? Because look, Mr. Dalmia is not in the best of health right now. That's one of the other questions that we have to ask ourselves. Here you're having a major crisis which requires a lot of leadership. And we do have a chief right now of the BCCI who is not in the best of health. And that is... That means that getting that decision making is going to be problematic right now.
May I just say one thing, Vikram? Supplementing what Shailendra said, the whole concept of the president, the main leader, the guide of the Indian Cricket Board, I will not call it control as Gopal was mentioning, Indian Cricket Board of control for cricket in India. And what have you had? I personally knew 10 or 11 of the presidents from the 70s onwards. Not one of them has been a real cricketer. Raj Singh was the nearest. He had played Ranji Trophy, and Raj Singh blotted the copybook of the kind of leadership that you can have by appointing Azharuddin with no thing from anybody. The anecdotal evidence is he went to Azhar at the nets, and he himself repeated it once on Big Fight, and he said, "Mia, Captain Banoge." And he, of course, when Azharuddin says yes or no, it's the same thing. But he was very happy with that. And what happened? Today, there were people like Ravi Shastri, there was Venksatkar who had been captain, there was Srikanth, there was, I mean, all these people were there, and it did not go through the committee.
No, so you're saying that the BCCI has always been done in a slightly whimsical fashion.
I mean,
totally autocratic.
Selections, anecdotes, I was there when this happened, I went on the tour. But I think that there's a selection committee, some people actually control and actually have more domination in that committee. It's another thing. I think the whole issue is the way people come in the board. People sweat
the process,
sweat for years, come through DDCA, collect proxies, go to each of the doors, become a joint secretary, then give the votes. Then once their candidate wins in the board, then he doles out these lollipops. You go for the manager, you become the coach, you become this. And this is what they be all and end all of their life is. It has to change, and I can only change by the sporting fraud bill. No, in '99, I'll just let me finish, because in '99 when the match fixing broke, a lot of players were caught. What happened? They got away because there was no rule. There was no teeth in the law where you could take them to prison. Now at least there's some scare that people are scared that if they do wrong.
Can I just ask? So what from a legal point of view, Gopal, and let me get you and put your legal hat on now, and tell us what is going to happen now, because Lodha committee is supposed to be also giving its recommendations and suggestions on what actually should happen to the BCCI. There is talk already about these people and the franchises perhaps appealing to the Supreme Court. Although I'm not quite sure how that works, but this is a Supreme Court committee in a sense. What legally is going to happen next?
Let me just put it in perspective first. And the interesting thing to note here is that the independent committee only applied BCCI's own rules and regulations, whether it's the code of conduct or the anti-corruption code. So it's not that they redesigned anything.
Exactly, yeah.
And that makes the point that all this while you had the rules, but if you applied it impartially and fairly, you would have arrived at a conclusion like this, which is why the Supreme Court said, we will not leave it to BCCI, but we will ask the independent committee to act on behalf of BCCI.
But they left it a few times and we know what happened.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
So crucial,
wrap on the knuckle.
crucial thing here therefore is the quantum of punishment that we see is only because you had an impartial committee headed by Justice Lodha, who by the way was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, part of the bench which cancelled all coal block allocations from 93. So he's seen this kind of thing. Second, it says this decision will be final and binding on BCCI and all the parties, but you can raise objections in law. That, as you rightly said, is now limited because this committee itself was appointed by the court. It will go back, and it's unlikely in the
But
teeth
the
of their
next step of what he's going to do, which is make recommendations.
Correct. Now comes the crucial thing, which I think all the panelists have also mentioned. The whole architecture of the rules have to be changed because it was only done to make sure that one person calls the shots and his decision cannot be questioned. Now you are in an era of governance. You need to look at the model code of conduct followed all over the world by sporting federations, and that structure which brings accountability and responsibility must come in. But I think the crucial lesson in all this is any action oversight mechanism cannot be done by BCCI. It requires an independent and impartial panel like you have in the Olympics.
Exactly.
They take on the spot decisions, but by highly acclaimed people of unimpeachable credibility. That lesson, I think,
don't want an office in the
comes
board.
from this. We don't want this function to remain in the board. This must, if I may use the word, be outsourced permanently.